Hello everyone, welcome to Algebra 1-2, the place where we discuss topics in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and additional mathematics. Today's topic, factorization using the highest common factor, or the HCF. In this lesson, you will learn how to define and choose the highest common factor, and to factorize expressions using the highest common factor. What is the highest common factor then, and how do we find it? The highest common factor is the highest number or algebraic term that can divide two or more numbers or terms exactly. And by exactly, we mean that there's no remainder once we're finished dividing. Let's look at this one. What is the highest common factor of 6, 8, and 12? To do that, we need to first write out the factors of 6. So the factors of 6, let's write those in a bracket. The factors of 6 are the numbers that can divide 6. So we mean 1, 2, 3, and 6. Those are the numbers that can divide 6 exactly without, when we say numbers, we mean whole numbers that can divide 6 without a remainder. Let's try the same thing for 8. The factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. And for 12 now, the factors of 12 are, we can use another method here to write out the factors of 12. We can use what we call factor pairs. So 12 is the same thing as 12 times 1. 12 is also the same thing as 4 times 3. And 12 is also the same thing as 6 times 2. So the factors of 12 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And so we can look at these three sets of numbers and choose that number which is common and the highest. So there are two numbers that are common here. 1 is common to all three groups, and also 2 is common to all three groups. And the highest of these numbers, or the higher of these two numbers, is 2. So the HCF, or the highest common factor, of 6, 8, and 12 is 2. Now, what if we're dealing with an algebraic expression? What do we do then? Now, first we need to look at the numbers. So we have 6 and 12, and we can immediately see that the highest number that can divide 6 and 12 would be 6. Now let's look at the letters. When we're dealing with the letters, what we do is that we choose the lower power. So let's look at the powers here. We have x squared, and we have an x here. And what we do is that we choose the lower one. Now remember, the power for this x is 1. It's not normally written, so remember that. It's 1 and it's lower than 2. So we write down x. And then the powers for the y are y to the third and y squared. And so we choose the lower one, which is y squared. And this would be the highest common factor for the terms 6x squared y cubed minus 12xy squared. So that's how we find the highest common factor. Now let's talk about how we factorize an expression using the highest common factor. Remember, to factorize an expression is to rewrite that expression as a product. So to factorize by the highest common factor, we need to do three things, which is 1, choose the correct highest common factor. Then we divide the expression by the highest common factor. And third, we rewrite the expression as a product using the highest common factor and the quotient, which is written in brackets. Let's try it on this example and see how it works. So look at 3 and 21. The highest number that can divide 3 and 21 is 3. And let's look at the letters. Here we have x squared and x. So we choose the lower one, which is x. And now what we're going to do is to divide this expression by 3x. So we're going to open a bracket and we're going to divide 3x squared divided by 3x. And what that literally means is to say 3x squared, x squared means x times x, and we're dividing it by 3x. So we can divide there, x divided by x, x divides itself out, and 3 divides itself out, and that leaves us with x. So we put our answer in the bracket, and then we have a minus 21x, and we're going to divide that by 3x. So we can divide these two out, and we can divide 3 into 21, we get 7. And so our result, write that 7 here. Remember, it's a minus 7. When we factorize this expression, 3x squared minus 21x, using the highest common factor, we get this answer, 3x multiplied by x minus 7 in bracket. Let's try the idea on another question. Here we have one that is a little more complicated. So we have 12p cube q plus 8p square q cube. Now let's look at the numbers, 12 and 8. You will realize that the highest number that can divide 12 and 8 is 4. So let's write that down. 4. Now let's look at our letters, p cube and p square. We use the lower of the two. So we're going to write down p square. And then we have q. Here is our q. Q here and q cube. And q is lower than q to the third. So we're going to write down q. And this is our highest common factor for this expression. Now let's open a bracket. And what we're going to do is to divide each of these by this and put our answer in the bracket. So we have 12p to the third q, and we're going to divide that by 4p square q. Now literally, when you write this out, p to the third means p times p times p. So this is actually saying 12 times p times p times p times that q divided by 4 times p, which is p squared, times q. Now what do we get when we try to divide this out? We can get 3 fours out of 12. This divides itself out, that divides itself out, this q divides itself out there. And so what we're left with is just 3 and p. So we end up with a 3p here. Let's put back our plus sign. Now we have 8p squared q to the third, and we're going to divide it by 4p squared and q. Now literally again, this means, notice we have a p square here and a p square here, so I'm not going to write that one out. But we have a q to the third here and a q, so I'm going to write 8p squared q divided by 4p squared q. Now what do we get when we try to divide this out? 8 divided by 4, we get 2 4s there. This p squared divides out itself here. And here we divide out a q there. And here we are left with q times q, which is the same thing as q squared. So we have 2q squared, and we can write that down in our bracket. And this becomes our result when we factorize this expression using the highest common factor. Let's look at another example. Here we have 12x to the third minus 18x squared plus 6x. And we can look at the numbers and see 12, 18, and 6, that we can use a 6 to divide those numbers. Now look at the powers for the x to the third, x squared, and x, and so the lowest one would be x. And so what we're going to be doing is literally dividing each of these by 6x and writing the answer there. So 6, let's write the 12x first. So we have 12x to the third divided by 6x. Now remember, this 6x, this x has a power of 1. So what it literally means is 12 times x times x times x, and we're dividing it by 6x. Now let's look at it. 6 divides into 12 2 times. This x divides itself out, and that leaves us with a x times x, which is the same thing as x squared. Another way to get our result here is to use the division rule for indices, which says q to the y. Let's use a different letter. Let's say a to the y divided by a to the x, and it says we can simply subtract the powers, so we can write a to the y minus x. So in working this out, 12x to the third divided by 6x to the first power. Of course, we know that 6 into 12 is 2. And in dividing out the powers, we can simply say 3 minus 1, and that would give us our 2. So that's another way in which we can do it. So our answer here would be 2x squared minus 18x squared divided by 6x. Let's write that down. 18x squared divided by 6x. Notice again, 6 can divide 18 3 times. And x can take out the x here because 18x squared literally means 18 times x divided by 6x. Look at it. 6 into 18 goes 3, and these two divide each other out, which leaves us with 3x. And at the end part, we have 6x divided by 6x. Now, you know that when you divide a number by itself, the answer is 1, except when you have 0 over 0. This has no meaning. In every other case, the answer is 1. So 6x divided by 6x is 1. And so we write our 1. We close our bracket, and we are finished factorizing this expression by 6x, which is our highest common factor. Let's try one more example. Here we have e to the 4x plus 3e to the 3x plus 4e to the 2x. And what is common is that we can take out a 2x from each of these. So we can write down e to the 2x as our common factor, and we're going to divide each of these by e to the 2x. Now, e to the 4x divided by e to the 2x, we're going to use the indices rule. It says we can subtract the powers. So it's going to give us e to the 4x minus 2x, which gives us e to the 2x. So we can write that down. Here we have 3e to the 3x divided by e to the 2x. Let's use the subtraction rule again for dividing, division rule for dividing indices. And it says we can subtract the powers. So it's 3e rather, to the 3x, take away 2x. 3x take away 2x here gives us an x. So, or a x. So we write e3, e to the x. And now we have 4e to the 2x divided by e to the 2x. And this cancels out itself and leaves us with just 4. So we can apply this factorization method to many different situations where we want to tidy up an expression or to write our answer in a different way, in a more compact way. So we can factorize by the highest common factor. Let's look at one last example. Here we have factorize half x squared minus 3/4 x plus 1. Sometimes you might be doing a question, and when you check the answers in your book, you realize that your answer is written differently from what you have, and you might be sure that your answer is correct. Sometimes the authors of textbooks simplify their answers to the lowest point. So what we can do with an expression like this is to factor out the quarter. Now notice that quarter is lower than a half. And earlier we were talking about whole number factors, but we can apply it to fraction factors as well. So our HCF here in terms of numbers is a quarter. And what we can do is go ahead and factor out a quarter from all of this. So we write down a quarter, and what we're going to do is to divide each of these by a quarter. Now, since we're going to be dealing with the numbers, remember a half divided by a quarter is the same as saying half times 4 over 1, which gives us 2. So this is going to give us 2x squared minus 3/4 divided by a quarter is going to give us minus 3. And 1 divided by a quarter at the end is going to give us 1 times 4, which is 4. This is 3x plus 4. And so it's a very, very useful technique. The highest factorizing by the highest common factor is a very, very useful technique for simplifying answers, for tidying up results and making them look better. And this becomes our result when we have factored out the quarter from here. Now that you know how to factorize by using the highest common factor, it's time for you to get some practice so that you can tie down that skill, so that you can memorize it, so that it becomes a part of your vocabulary in mathematics. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And remember, the only way to learn mathematics is to do mathematics. Thank you so very much for watching, and until next time.